Hello. Hello, welcome everybody. It's great to see you all here. Thank you all so much for coming out today. We'll go ahead and get started. I think probably most people are in by now. So welcome to the Beckman Center and to this Irvine Tech Week event. And I'm off to a great start. I turned off the projector somehow. Oops. Thanks. So welcome. So I'm Ann Hultgren. I am the executive director of the Arnold and Mabel Beckman Foundation, and it's our honor to be hosting this event today. The Beckman Foundation really has its roots here in Orange County and in Irvine, from Beckman Instruments, which turned into Beckman Coulter, which turned into lots of things and has now been sold to Danaher, but is still here in the community as well. And the Beckmans, when they were retiring and thinking about the fortune that they had amassed, they decided actually to leave that funds in a endowed foundation with a mission in perpetuity to support young scientists. So here at the foundation, what we do is carry on that legacy. We give out grants for junior faculty, undergraduate scholarships. We work with the Science and Engineering Fair here in Orange County, and really our mission is to inspire that next generation of leaders in science. And so we are honored to carry forward that legacy here. And we have an exciting panel, so I'm going to, at this point, introduce Scott Fox to come up. He's going to be moderating the panel, and he's the founder and CEO of the Orange County Startup Council. So Scott, would you like to?
That's a really big picture, sorry. Okay, do we have a handheld? Can I use one? This. 1, 2, there we go, okay, excellent. My paparazzi friends, this is the time for photos. If you've got them and can share them with me, that would be great. So, it's time for Irvine Tech Week. Hooray! Yay, we're back. So how many of you were at the kickoff the other night at City Hall? Only 2? Well, there were 600 other people there. And next year, you got to come because we blew out City Hall. Like, it was really big and really cool and really fun. First time, well, we did last year, but about half the people last year. So this year was much bigger. And before I go any farther, she's smiling at me, so I have to give a shout out. Melinda, please stand up. This is Melinda Pang. She started Irvine Tech Week. Yes, partners in crime, taking over the city, building by building. So here we are in a new building. How many of you have been in this building before? Okay, how many of you haven't, I guess is really the question. Okay, that's why we're here, exactly, right? Isn't this beautiful? So we really want to thank Ann and Carrie and the Beckman board. Andrew, I met a gentleman named Steve, I think, who's on the board. A bunch of you, thank you for opening this building. It's a beautiful place, and most people don't know it's here. So we hope that this will be the start of a future collaboration so we can do more to merge the Beckman Foundation's wonderful work that is national and even global, and do more of that here at home as well, because there's a lot going on here, and that's why we do Irvine Tech Week. So let's see. So I'm Scott Fox. I guess you already got that part. So yeah, I guess more or less. Okay. So if you haven't done this, OrangeCountyStartupCouncil.org is the organization I run, and we are pretty much the only news source covering early stage startups in Orange County. And I started this myself. I'm mostly an angel investor these days. I have a software and e-commerce, fintech sort of background for many years. And I started this when I moved to Orange County because I was really distressed because there's so much opportunity here, and yet there didn't seem to be a startup culture that was connecting the ecosystem so that it could grow and accelerate. So we are sort of it's a volunteer thing, just like Irvine Tech Week. We all lose money doing this because we are trying to improve the community. But we're basically a kind of a chamber of commerce crossed with a publication. So if you are an early stage startup or an investor or a service provider, come get on our list. Join our directories so that people can find you and you can find each other and come to our events. We publicize everybody's events for Switzerland. We're just trying to accelerate everyone and make a rising tide that lifts all the boats. And that's also what we're doing at Irvine Tech Week. So I guess the real question is, so why do we do this? Why do we do this? I spend a lot of time building community, and I do it because I enjoy it, but I also do it because I think it's our chance to change the world. Technology of all sorts these days, I'm more of a software guy. A lot of you folks are life sciences people. Technology is accelerating at rates that we can hardly comprehend, and using that in clever ways gives us opportunities to make things better. And that's why I spend my time in the innovation ecosystem, and that's why we invited you here today. So I'd like to can you give yourselves a round of applause? Let's get the energy up here, right? Let's just go, right? Okay. You being here is the key, because we're all volunteers in this ecosystem. And together we can build a community by building relationships. And that's one of the reasons we did the networking beforehand, so that you guys would all talk to each other. Because how many of you met one new person today? Good. Yeah, we win. We're done. Okay. How many of you met 2 or 3? Yeah, good, even better, right? So that's the benefit. You're going to get a free gift, and that's it, right? You have new friends, and they're all here together, and we're here to keep increasing the community so that we can network and build the relationships. I work a lot as an investor, and a lot of the opportunities or the problems that early stage founders have is they always say, we need more money, we need more money. I say, no, you don't need more money. You need more relationships, because money follows relationships, and that's what we're doing here. You guys can make friends with each other. Be friendly. Give first, and it will come back. And I've seen this movie before. I was at Stanford in the mid-90s, lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and we saw Shallow Alto become the center of the world. It was a boring college town, I swear to God. When I enrolled in grad school there in the early 90s, I almost went back to New York. It was like, oh my God. But 5 years later, boom, right? And then I moved to LA, we saw it happen there. And it's gonna happen here. I tell you, I've been telling everybody this for 5 years now, and it's gonna happen tomorrow. And we're like one IPO away, where we're gonna start really doing this. And to be fair, a lot of you folks in life sciences are ahead of where we are in the software side here in Orange County. And we wanna see more and more of that happen. And that's why we're here collaborating. So anyway, so thank you for being here. This doesn't happen without you, right? This is about us as a team, rising the tide to lift all the boats together. So thank you for being here. Okay, so thank you. You're welcome. Okay, so also wanted to thank, we had a sponsor, the Beckhoff people. Are you here? The Beckhoff, well, there's a booth, there we go, Shermy. Okay, so Shermy Miller-Zhang, Beckhoff Automation has a booth out front. If you haven't checked out their booth on your way out, please check it out. Yes, thank you for supporting. And of course, again, Ann and the team here at Beckman. Okay. Enough preamble, let's get on with the show. Okay, you ready? All right, gentlemen, would you please join me on stage? Oh, yes. I heard that. That was a rumor. Have you heard about this rap? Okay. Oh, no. Okay, stranger danger, stranger danger.
No, just a ginger, no stranger danger here. My name is Ryan Fullen. Great to meet you. I'm the director of the UCI Entrepreneur Center. I've been excited to work with Melinda and Scott to help get the first Irvine Tech Week and then build to have this second Irvine Tech Week. So it's really exciting to see the Beckman Center, this awesome institute. How cool is this space, by the way? Super cool. But, anything that's good is with marketing. And so my dad always said, if you get them to laugh, you get them to learn. And I also rap. So I came up with an Irvine Tech Week rap last year, and now it's official. It's in the books. So I'll change it a little bit each time, but here it is. And for those that have rhythm, feel free to go along. If you don't have rhythm, please just enjoy, okay? Can anybody throw out some sort of a rhythm beat? Some sort of a something? Okay, together, nice. All right, here we go. Feel it. Irvine Tech Week, the place to be. Celebrating innovation, can't you see? We got developers, entrepreneurs, and all the greats. When you build a future, there's still time for breaks. From AI to AR to Chat GPT, FinTech, MedTech, sustainability. We've got investors that you gotta meet. It's a tech revolution in the Irvine streets. We got a 5K panels, a startup weekend. Time to level up, so let's begin. Connect with the movers and the shakers and the pros. Irvine is where the tech scene grows. So let's get together. It's time to explore. Unlock your minds and open up the doors. Join the tech community and make your mark. And may Irvine Tech Week ignite your spark!
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Didn't see that coming, did you? When was the last time that the Beckman Foundation hosted a rap? All right, we're breaking new ground here. there you go. When's the next time? Thank you, Ryan. Ryan runs the Entrepreneur Center. It's entrepreneur, but with an A for our ant eaters here at UCI, if you didn't know that. Entrepreneur Center, right up the street. So thank you for dropping by, Ryan, bringing the ginger energy. Okay, so like I was saying, we're going to have our friends come up here, please. We're going to do them one at a time. Let's see, what do we got here? Let's see, like this. Okay, here's Farzad. Excellent. Farzad from, Edwards, there it is, Edwards Life Sciences. There's Farzad, okay. This one's Farzad with the glasses. Okay, come on in and on.
Oh, I got it wrong,
okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay. And Joshua on the right. There we go, Beckman Coulter, one of Mr. Beckman's many legacies. And Anand, I don't know how fast you guys can read. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves as well, so they'll give you the good part. Okay. Okay, so let's go, gentlemen. Let's do a quick introduction. Now, I think we're going to move from macro to micro, just to give you guys an outline. And then at the end, I would like to take some questions as well, if you have questions. So we'll do about a half an hour together. I've got some really insightful, deep probing questions that we've rehearsed, but I will do introductions first. Okay, so who wants to go first? You can just give them anything that was missing,
Sure.
And we're going to try to keep things short so we can cover more material together.
Greetings and welcome to this afternoon. Anand Sampath from Massimo. Been with the company for about 18 years, and it still feels like day one. Thank you.
All right, and yeah, great. I'm honored to be seated next to him. I'm Farzad Azampour. I'm a cardiologist by background. I am the Senior Vice President of Advanced Technology at Edwards Life Sciences, and I run the incubator program there. I'm also on faculty at Stanford Biodesign, where I run the design program there. So great to be here.
All right, and Josh Donahue. I also have a rap. Oh, no, I don't. No rap. Sorry. Next year.
Next year.
We'll practice. Senior Director of Digital Technologies and Experiences at Beckman Coulter. So I've been there 7 years. My previous experience was a software engineer in aerospace, and I've loved the opportunity to jump into life sciences and the med device field to see how technology can really transform.
Excellent. So there we go. So I'm very pleased to be on this panel. I wouldn't have met these guys otherwise, so thank you guys for showing up. This is some real brain power we have here, and they're going to share some insights with you. We're going to move kind of from macro to more micro, and I thought we'd start with Farzad because he has, well, you can tell him about what you do, and he has a kind of an oversight role, macro trends, and a lot of stealth projects at Edwards. So tell us about all the stealth projects, please.
Yeah, so I'm happy to, they let me out, because typically I'm hidden in a basement someplace. No, but I think before we dive into specifics of technologies, the way that we approach problem solving is really trying to understand problems first. And so we want to be sure that we're going after problems that are worth solving. And to do that, we use a process that we've taken from the Stanford Biodesign program, and we've turned it into something that we can apply within industry. And we call it needs-based innovation. And it essentially is composed of 3 elements. The first is having a mechanistic problem that we can go after solving. The second is having a patient population who specifically would benefit by solving that problem. And third is having a measurable, value-driven outcome that we know that if we create a solution to this, that the world will adopt it. So we have to have a way of measuring things. And these principles really started with design thinking. That was a process that kind of came out of some teachings at Stanford in the late 70s and ultimately were commercialized with IDEO, which is a product design and innovation firm I worked for, and really turned into what became this health-specific application of design thinking, which we call biodesign or needs-driven innovation.
That's fantastic. Can you say a word about how you think those principles apply in just outside of Edwards to other life sciences companies, but to innovation in general?
So I think really the way that we do it at Edwards is we start always with the patient. And so if we're creating a technology and then trying to figure out where to apply that technology, it becomes very problematic. Or I should state maybe another way, there's a time to do that. So once a technology is already delivered, then we look for ways to approach new patient populations who could benefit from that technology. But when we start from scratch, when we start with a blank piece of paper, which is what our teams do, we have to have a process. And so by focusing in on a patient, we can do that. Where is a patient struggling? Where do we feel as though they're left behind or that there are no options available to them? Where are they frustrated or excluded from certain therapies? And that's our starting point. Help people, give people options to therapies that they wouldn't otherwise have because they don't exist.
Yeah, and it seems to me like those apply not just in healthcare, but the same sort of design thinking can apply in other industries as well, right? I'm more of a software guy, like I said, so I can see those same principles working for a lot of us who are in other fields in terms of starting with the outcome and designing backwards, focused on outcomes. Very interesting. Okay, so then Josh, your work involves a lot of the big word this year, or the big, what are the two letters I'm gonna say next? Can anybody? Yeah, there you go, good guess. The hive mind. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work and what you're seeing these days.
Yeah. So let me ground this first kind of in Beckman Coulter's mission, right? So Beckman Coulter, the way I easily explain this to people and kind of our main line of business is in vitro diagnostics. So when you go get your annual checkup, you go get a lab test, you get blood drawn, it goes into a tube. That tube then goes to a Beckman Coulter machine that then provides results. And those results are then used to provide diagnoses. And so previously, we were seen as almost this box company, right? Where you process these samples, you provide results, and that provides diagnosis. And what's really exciting about where we're going is, Farzad mentioned it, a focus on the patient, right? So our new mission, is to relentlessly reimagine healthcare, one diagnosis at a time. So every time you get a diagnosis, that's an important moment in someone's life, right? It could be a very happy moment, it could be a very sad moment, it could be a surprising moment, right? And so how do we manage at that level? And it becomes about way more than the chemistry and the interactions that happen inside the box, right? It goes to the whole life cycle of that patient experience. And so what we're doing now is how do we apply artificial intelligence? How do we apply technology across that whole journey, right, to improve patient outcomes and to get those diagnoses as accurate and efficiently delivered as quickly as possible.
And do you have a methodology, kind of like Farzad mentioned, within your firm? Because it really sounds to me like you're talking about is reimagining the whole process so that you can get to different outcomes. You're kind of thinking from first principles almost.
Yeah, it's great hearing Farzad because I feel like there's a lot of overlap in what we do in the technology space. Now, being more in the technology space, a lot of times what we're looking at is almost more of the technology push that Farzad talked about, like generative AI, right? That is this huge disruptor potentially in the market. And so our job becomes, how could we leverage this technology to improve patient outcomes? And so what we do is just really quick kind of tri-storms and POCs, like what can we do with this technology? Is it valuable? Do we abandon it or do we invest in it, right? And we do that cycle over and over again until we find basically what sticks.
Very nice, thank you. So that brings us to Anand and Massimo, which is a different kind of company, also very active and based here. Again, these guys are all based here, which is one of the reasons it was so great for us to come together with the Beckman Foundation to showcase the innovation that's happening here in Orange County. So Massimo, born and bred here, and you've been with them a long time. So what are you working on? What's your point of view on this?
Thank you. So just going back to our core premise of our company, we exist primarily on the healthcare side to look at non-invasive monitoring, being able to look at what happens in the physiology without necessarily getting into the physiology or the anatomy, and then being able to take that information and make decisions. Building off from what Farzad and Josh were saying, going from the macro to the micro, just trying to apply those principles live here. If you take the three-step approach that Farzad talked about and what Josh said about Beckman building the box and trying to measure blood, the question I would ask myself is, how could I do it non-invasively, right? And that's what Massimo tries to do, is it looks at these problems and says, how could I do that? If you look at Beckman and Coulter, one of their most fundamental innovations, and I don't hope you'll agree, Josh, is their ability to count the red blood cell, right? And the counting of the red blood cell allowed people to assess the second most common reason why you take a blood test, to look at hemoglobin. We said, why can't you do it non-invasively? So almost 12 years ago, we started a project to look at measuring hemoglobin non-invasively using the principles of pulse oximetry. And we were able to do that. And I think in 2008, we started off with the first device. And many, many generations now, we are able to build a spot check device, which you can just go stick your finger into a sensor and 35 seconds later give you a hemoglobin value. We are also able to continuously measure hemoglobin in an operating room during surgery, especially if a patient needs blood. Can we help the anesthesiologist decide, should they give more blood or should they hold off? Because blood is almost like an organ transplant. So these are the kinds of ways in which Massimo literally tries to live those very principles Farzad talked about and apply them to problems which people generally think are unsolvable. But I think all of us can attest they're all available.
That's exciting. I like that word, unsolvable. I'm a serial entrepreneur, an incurable entrepreneur, my wife might say. And that unsolvable is the challenge that, excites me and excites us, as whether you're in a big company or a small, but it's that quest for innovation and a mental curiosity that drives the world forward. That's why I do what I do. That's why you guys do what you do, I think, as well, and probably a lot of you as well. So we're here today to talk about tech and trends, right? So of these we talked a little bit about technology. We'll get into that more, but again, moving from the macro down to micro a little bit, some of the trends, what are you seeing that you're most excited about? And I warned them up front, we all agree, we could probably do a 3-day conference here. So we're gonna try to do the overview and then we'll take questions. But maybe each of you could give me a trend that you think either personally or even more so for your company, where you're investing and exploring and you think there's opportunity, not just to grow your business, but I think probably there are people here who are interested in getting into life. Am I right about that? Are there people who are trying to get into life sciences? Yeah, I see a few heads nodding anyway. So where do you see the opportunities? That's what I'm trying to ask. This is my secret. I'm an angel investor. I'm trying, where's the deals?
So Edwards has been making products, implantable medical devices for the heart since the 1950s. And so we love making stuff, right? And at the end of the day, you could probably point to anyone on campus and they identify as a maker. But I think one of the toughest challenges that we're all facing right now today, at least in the structural heart disease space, is identifying patients out in the world who otherwise think that they're just getting old, and they attribute their symptoms to slowing down because they're just getting old. And this is, a topic that is so critical because almost 90% of patients, as an example, walking around with critical or severe aortic stenosis don't know that they have it. This is severe valvular disease, valve failure, essentially. They don't even know they have the problem. So as amazing as the products are that we make, if they don't have a home, or if the patients don't even know that they need it, there's a major disconnect. So I think that's probably the biggest opportunity. Rather than companies trying to fight each other for market share, my product is better than yours. That's not what we're talking about. It's informing, educating the public, bringing them along in a journey to help share information with your family members that could be life-saving.
That's great.
Josh,
Yeah, I
go
can
ahead.
go next. So mine more selfishly, probably if I say I work in AI, you're probably all thinking what I'm going to say, which is generative AI, right? But I want to just spin that a little bit. We're all used to generative AI working in a specific way, whether it's Chat GPT, DALL-E, Sora. And for me, I'm actually not too much of a fan of some of the direction generative AI is going, which is going into the creative arts, right? With imagery, videos, stuff like that. Text is great. I think it's a foundational use case. But really what I'm excited to see is how can we apply the backbone of generative AI in the life sciences field, right? So generative AI at its core is, takes historical data and generates something new, based upon that. So what if instead of generating text or images, we're generating chemical formulas or generating gene sequences or protein synthesis, right? These are areas that I think, OpenAI and a lot of the public companies have taken us down this route of kind of invading this creative sector, right? How can we apply it in the science sector to, again, really think about the patient, the diagnosis, and just overall improvement to people's lives?
If you were to look at trends, I would break them into two basic categories. There are enablers, right, which will allow future trends to be realized, and then there are opportunities. If you look at the enabler side, all of you, carry your own cell phones. So I carry two, whatever reason.
He's ahead of the curve. He carries 2 cell phones.
So if you look at the amount of computing power that's in any one of these devices, thank you, that is phenomenal. That's astronomical. I talked to you about the hemoglobin product. We can now do things in a portable platform that up till now were just out of reach. The reason generative AI is now commonplace is computing has enabled it. So just like computing power, which is now available to us, you have new tools available to us. You have a variety of sensing technology that up till now was hard to make or difficult to package, now being readily available. So if you combine computing power, sensing technologies, new techniques in signal processing, these all become enablers. Then you say, where are the opportunities? If you look at opportunities, healthcare, unfortunately, is extraordinarily fragmented. Each device, if you go to an operating room or a hospital, you'll see a variety of devices. Each of their devices is an island of automation. There is a lack of the term called data fluidity. To take care of you or me, you need the data from all those boxes to be in one place, and hopefully in a meaningful way. So these are all opportunities that exist. And if you combine that with wearable technology, if you combine that with data fluidity, sensor fusion, signal processing, machine learning techniques, I mean, the future is just unbelievably out there in terms of opportunities.
So let's get back to AI then, because that is going to impact all of these things. I'm going to kick it back to you, Josh. You guys are working on things, probably even things you can't talk about, but this is a safe space, so you can tell us anything you'd like. And we'd love to hear more about what you're working on specifically in the AI world and how you see that applying both, to your specific patient outcomes, but also I'm curious on the larger societal trends. If you've managed to solve these things, what's next? The trend beyond the trend, perhaps.
Yeah. So that's great. So there's 2 main areas Beckman Coulter is playing in the AI space. One is in what's called clinical decision support. So it's essentially an AI system that's there to help physicians treat patients. Right now, our main play on that is within the emergency department. How do we help improve patient outcomes and also improve the efficacy and efficiency of care from people from the time they enter the door, right, until the time hopefully they leave successfully, right? So that I think is really a great area because there's so many, there's tests that are done, there's triage that's done, there's so many touch points, right? And I think to the data fluidity point, there's so much data that happens very quickly in an ER, and it's a stressful time for everyone. So I really love that mission of diving in on the emergency room. And then the kind of trend before the trend, or beyond the trend maybe, is how do we leverage AI in biomarker innovation, right? So instead of everything being a chemical reaction with blood and stuff like that, what are the other supplemental biomarkers that can maybe help improve diagnoses overall? Or maybe there's diagnoses that are specific to specific types of people. And it
And
goes
I'm guessing
down
those are, you're the expert here, but I'm guessing this is part of what AI could do is because it can absorb so much more information than individual humans or even teams of humans could do. Is that kind of what you're digging at here? You've got such large data pools that you can find patterns and generate information or signal from the noise better than before?
Yeah, it goes back to, I think, what Anand was saying with the amounts of data we have. We're getting to a point where personalized medicine, right, may become quite interesting, where you're getting treatment that is specific for you, not for a general population.
Right, because there's a historic trend where most, you tell me again better than I know, but so many medical studies are done on a typical population of like college-aged white males or something like that, right? And there's so many people that are left out of that demographic. And so there's opportunity to personalize is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that mission, right, of making sure that the right people get the right care to improve outcomes.
Sure.
And I think AI is a real enabler of that.
Farzad, you guys must be looking at AI for research purposes or product purposes or 1,000 purposes probably.
I'm going to go ahead and pass on this one.
Oh, okay. All right. How about you guys?
Fortunately for me, our CEO, Joe Chiani, just delivered the major AI lecture from Massimo yesterday in Chile. And I'll just give you a couple of very concrete examples of that. Example number one, this is something we started almost back in 2018. It's called Halo Ion. As I think Josh was already hinting with precision medicine and getting all this information that's out there, many of you may have heard of the term big data and why that's a problem. Of course, now with data consumers, that's an opportunity. So what we did with Halo Ion was look at all the critical continuous variables that are monitored in the hospital, like heart rate, oxygen saturation, respiratory rate, and said that if you're taking care of 30 people in a ward, how could we get the 2 nurses to focus and go to the most critical people, right? If their times are short, and then go to the next needed critical people and so on. So triaging this based on a single number that can assimilate all of this information.
Nice, and taking it out of the data sphere into the real world so that human beings can actually implement.
A single risk score where you can consolidate that information, say, red, please go to room number 10, yellow, you take care of them in room number 3, and the rest you can take care when you have taken care of those 2 guys, right? So the other example is now with wearable technology, I mentioned sensor fusion, we have methods in which you can continuously monitor people at home. So especially if you've checked out of surgery, people may give you for pain opioids. And as a result of those opioids, most opioids also depress the respiratory system. So the question is, some people are affected more than others. If they're adversely affected, can we call a family member? Can we call 911 if it really gets to that stage? So we call that opioid halo, which is another number which is able to combine these metrics and then take the right action in the critical time.
Nice.
And both of them use machine learning techniques. And by the way, many of them have been implemented 3 or 4 years ago and now been matured and released and available in the marketplace.
That's great. I'm going to get sick in your hospital. That sounds good.
So, you know, I was kind of kidding earlier, but I'm not going to divulge any Edward secrets specifically.
No, it's
but
okay. They all signed NDAs. It's cool.
I will say an interesting trend has been evolving around using single lead ECG, which is a very easy thing to capture. Many of our smart watches capture that information, and using it as a screening tool for things that don't otherwise seem like they're ECG-related topics, like valvular disease, interestingly, right? So you have enough data in the population, you have enough measurements in both echocardiography as well as ECG, and you can start to make these connections. So, you know, keep capturing your data, keep recording what you've got, and maybe, you know, you'll get a notification that you didn't expect that, hey, you know, there's a possibility that you need to go get checked out by your physician.
Excellent. Okay, a few more questions here. I just want to get some gauge from you guys. How many of you have questions? Not too many? Okay, I'll keep talking. That's fine. We'll still do some questions, so don't worry. But think about your questions. I'll ask you again in a minute. So we touched for a second, just briefly tangentially, on diversity when I was talking there about the sample size for different medical study populations. And in our prep calls, we talked a bit about the importance of diversity in terms of perhaps informing not just the patient population, but the research and the scientists and what they're interested in and what they can contribute to the research. I know some of you have been making efforts within your companies to reflect that. You want to talk about that? Who's interested in kicking off?
Yeah, I could talk about that. Diversity is paramount to me and my team, right? So Danaher as a whole, I think, invests pretty strongly in diversity, equity, and inclusion. But for me personally, like the value of having people from different backgrounds, different regions, different education. Like sometimes people I think my team is just going to be full of software engineers, right? And I love having, neuroscientists or communications or all these different backgrounds on my team, because when we come together, right, the solutions that'll come out of left field are just amazing, right? And the tools and the talent that is out there in diverse and kind of underserved populations, for me, is an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to find the best people for what I find to be an amazing job. So yeah, very, very important to our culture.
Thanks.
I challenge anyone to walk into a clinic or a hospital and not observe a population that looks like us or even more diverse, right? And so how is it possible that we're going to create solutions for people if we don't have that type of representation within? If we look at how we've structured our super early stage teams, we don't have like a team of engineers or a team of marketers. It's on a team of 5 people, let's say, there's one marketer, upstream marketer, there's one biomedical engineer, there's one physician who's a cardiac surgeon or a cardiologist, there's a PhD physiologist who does large animal studies. Nobody's alike, and everybody's teaching everybody else about their craft. And the whole point is so that we can be nimble, we can bring experiences that we've all had from our cultures and our professions to the table, make quick decisions, and move forward. And then when we need to, conduct clinical trials and other things like that, we have to then think about it at another level. Are we approaching clinical trial sites that are representative of how the world is going to adopt this technology? Are we going to, geographically? I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into just that aspect. So I think it's not like a blanket statement that we think about diversity. It's very specific depending on where
Practical reality, it sounds like. That's what I was impressed in our rehearsal call was that you guys really, you're not just saying this, there's a practical ROI on this. It's not just greenwashing or whatever they call that. How about you guys?
A slightly different take on diversity side, I think going back to your question about how do we make sure that if we're putting together a medical device that say monitors our oxygenation or heart rate, how does it work well on everyone, right? So how does it work if it's using light? How does it work well with people with high skin pigmentation, low skin pigmentation, people without skin pigmentation, rare cases, melanized forms and so on. I think that is where another aspect of diversity, right from the studies, the design of the devices in being able to impact the entire population, because there are also global differences in physiology, in anatomy, that's very visible, of course. And how do we make sure you have sensor sizes that go from an adult US to an adult Asian? There are differences in the size of the forehead if we are making an EEG sensor. So there are things to think about when you're looking at if the whole Earth's population is your target market, how do we build our devices to kind of cater to the needs of everyone?
Great. Okay, so let's bring it now. I was saying macro to micro. Now we're going to bring it to Orange County. I'd like to hear a little bit about, and I think the audience would too, what are you doing here in Orange County, your companies? You guys are here physically, but are your companies engaged in the community? Are you hiring in the community? Like how would people engage with your companies, either as a potential partner, customer, hopefully not a patient, but maybe, or to get a job? Like what's your forward looking face for our audience here?
If I can go ahead. Certainly, so there are a number of ways in which we at Massimo engage. Clearly from the employee standpoint, we have outreaches into various universities I personally work with Chapman, SDSU, UCI, of course, and we try to bring in students. We try to create projects with the students in our facility, or sometimes we assign employees to work with students over a full year. Usually goes beyond the semester where possible with their academic curriculum. So that way there is engagement directly. We also try to encourage events like helping the Society for Women Engineers, bringing in a STEM for women, and trying to bring them into our company, give them a demonstration, talks, and so on. So we try to do this at multiple levels. We also engage with local hospitals to make our buildings available for them for special events. So we try different ways in which at the most basic community outreach level, there are engagements at 3 or 4 parts of the organization.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, Edwards was founded based off of a partnership between an engineer and a physician. And so that relationship is sacred to us. And so we're so fortunate to have excellent institutions here in Orange County and in the kind of multiple spheres beyond. So our partnership with physicians and scientists at those levels is critical, from understanding problems to even later on developing some of the solutions together. We work very closely as well with the universities from a biomedical engineering standpoint, working to nurture kind of up and coming, physician scientists and scientists who may find a home at Edwards. And then we work with organizations like the Alliance for SoCal Innovation and Octane, who kind of help us bridge connections as well between entrepreneurs and innovators and investors and scientists and technical folks who can all benefit together. So we're lucky to be here.
That's the truth. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, so it's very similar to some of these with the university partnerships is very big for us, specifically UCI and kind of engagement in a lot of their capstone projects. We also work with the Orange County School District, and we go and kind of educate people on Beckman Coulter, the types of career options there, because it's, a lot of times it's not a brand, right, that people think of. So I think it's really great to go out and kind of these students, there's a lot of these computer science programs starting at the high school and even earlier level. And so being able to engage with students there and let them know the opportunities has been really, really great. And then, my personal passion, we do a lot of partnership with the Girls Who Code Foundation, both locally and nationally. And that's been great as well.
Great organization. Great. Excellent. Okay, so I got one more question for them, then we're going to go to your questions. And I want to, when I host panels, I do a lot of this, as some of you probably know who have seen me this week anyway. I like to give a specific takeaway. So I asked our panelists to think about a specific recommendation they could offer you, something tactical like a podcast or a book or a conference or an organization, something they recommend that would help raise your game, perhaps, and if not that, at least a good restaurant in Orange County. That's always helpful too, right? So can you guys, who's got something spicy to share with our audience that might be practically helpful?
I mean, I think the biggest recommendation I can make has nothing to do with that, actually, which is know where your defibrillators are in your offices and your workplaces, please. Like I saw one coming out of the restroom in the hallway there. Just make a mental note, because you don't know when you're going to need that thing. And I'll just say that I've had a very personal experience where it would have saved my 37-year-old cousin had people known to activate that system. So learn CPR, know where your AEDs are, call 911. There's also a book completely unrelated to that.
Well, thank you for that. That was significant.
So some graduates of the Stanford Biodesign program put together a very practical little, it's a little handbook almost, and it's called The Hidden Wombat. And it's meaning waste of money, brains, and time. So basically, avoid things that are avoidable in the process of innovating, particularly when it comes to the practical realities of taking something forward in an industry setting. Whether you're a startup, hoping to maybe be acquired, or whether you're inside of an industry setting and trying to figure out, realistically, what can take me to the next level. So Hidden Wombat
Nice. And that's
no
like
one-
an ebook? You could buy it or get it off Amazon, that kind of
on
thing?
Amazon.
Great,
And
thank you.
I don't make money off of it.
I literally wrote that down. That sounds cool. Okay, and the defibrillators, I got that too. That's good. How about you,
Yeah,
Josh?
I can go. I'm glad I don't have to follow the defibrillator. So thank you for the second recommendation. So I may be preaching to the choir a bit here, but for me personally, the book Innovator's DNA was a marked change, I think, in my career that I appreciated a lot. The other, let's say, podcast, I do like How I Built This with Guy Raz. I like hearing a lot about other industries, right? Like things that are completely unrelated, marketing whiskey, right? I don't know. Anyways, it's a great opportunity to kind of broaden horizons. And then last, it's another pitch, but Girls Who Code and getting involved in like hackathons, stuff like that. Really, really engaging, really awesome group.
All right, that's quite a list. What do you got?
Can't beat that.
Yeah.
One go-to place that I think it's really insightful is this website called Our World in Data. You might have encountered it, but it's a collaboration with pretty much all the major research institutes in the US. And they have every week there's data that is showcasing a particular problem. In fact, I would strongly encourage you to look at the AI section of Our World in Data, which neatly breaks down all the different techniques and where they came from, what's happening, and so on. So it's a ready-made, always available resource that you should use if you haven't already. The other place, I think, which is also very handy, are patent research. So if you're doing something, it's always helpful to go look for patents.google.com or any other patent search tool to bring up patents, because patents have a way of describing what is the problem they're solving, what is the background, related activities, and other inventions that might also have a bearing. So it gives you a nice contextual view of whatever problem you're out to solve.
Excellent. So that's valuable stuff, right? I wrote down all of those. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, now we're gonna move on to some questions from you guys, but first we have to do that social media thing. So can you give them all a big round of applause? Like, let them know you appreciate what they're doing. Come on, you can better than that. All right, hold on. Yes, yes, yes. There you go. Excellent. And where are they? All right, one more. You know, it doesn't happen unless we post it on social media, so. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so who's got some questions? We've got a few more minutes left. Yeah, okay, so I have some questions. Okay, well, let's start right here in the front. I don't know if we'll get to all of these. We've got, it's a big day. I don't know, can you just stand up? I don't know if I can get up and down. Yeah, can you just go ahead and talk and we'll know if, yeah.
One of the trend I have noticed among all of you is
Can you hear him in the back? I'll repeat the question too. Go ahead.
you assume that there will be connectivity, everything will be fine, but are we prepared for the disasters? Because what actually everybody is doing is collecting data, taking it to a central place, making the decision over there, and bringing it back to the person.
Excellent, so that's a great question. So
Yesterday, actually, my language person, he actually gave a solution which
That's
was offline.
yes.
There are times when offline things are required. And there's something called edge computing. Are we prepared? Are we preparing for edge computing? Sensors are great nowadays, smaller and all those things. And we have a device here which can communicate through Bluetooth and give us information. So are we prepared for the disasters?
Great question.
The satellite?
No, we got it, thank you. Okay, so he's referring to a company that pitched, last night I hosted the Tech Coast Angels pitch competition. One of the companies called My Language, and they do real-time AI translation, air-gapped essentially on your own for defense contractors and spies and, forward operators. It was a very interesting company, right? But that's what he's referring to. So what did you think about that? When the connectivity goes off, what do you think?
Yeah, it's not even a disaster for us. That's every day. So, so where are medical laboratories and hospitals? The basement, right? half the times we don't get signal there, half the times we don't have connectivity, they're air gapped from the rest of the network. So yes, we have to be able to provide patient results in any situation. And so these tools and stuff that we talk about, we do talk about how that lives close to whether it's the service person, whether it's the lab tech using the instrument, et cetera. It's a problem we face every day.
Interesting. We don't all need to answer every time, but if you have something, go ahead and chime in.
Yeah, very quickly. I mean, I mentioned sensors. The watch I'm wearing, and it's giving me my heart rate right now, is indicative that you have to have redundancy everywhere. You cannot assume anything. So that goes back to basic design. And if designed well, then you can have a cascading level of feature sets with a fallback mechanism built into it.
Good point. Not all or nothing necessarily, right? Okay, hands? Hey, Sandy.
I'm Krista. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I wanted to ask you, you're talking about delivering diagnoses and other stressful data, potentially stressful data, even if it's exciting data, straight to a person without that third-party intervention. So are you taking into account like the level of stress and the functionality that person might have, their IQ, and changing the delivery of that information to where they are emotionally? So that's
Is that directed to anybody in particular, or?
I think actually more Anand, given that you're talking more about non-invasive and immediate kind of data back to the person without it having to go through more machinery.
Makes sense. And I think it's a very valid point, which needs a fair amount of thought put into it, because ultimately providing data is useless if that's not in terms of actionable information. If you're giving a mom information about a child's heart rate and they don't know what to do with it, it's just causing even more stress. So I think the challenge is to make sure it turns it into something meaningful and saying, go take the child to the doctor, or give them attention, or do something else, versus giving them 15 numbers. So absolutely, and I think that's where some of the opportunity is, and hopefully opportunities for ideas from members of the audience.
Yeah, sounds good. Patty, I saw your, yeah, go ahead, Patty.
Thank you so much. This was great. I'm a founder and CEO of RxPlace, and healthcare is an amazing behemoth, right? But it moves slow. Innovation is happening. AI has been around for a long time, right? But it's finally seems like it's kind of starting to move a needle. There's a lot of issues. I think you all spoke about the patient literacy. That's a huge issue, right? We're talking about 90% of Americans lacking health literacy, so it's a big problem. But how do you feel that the health systems and the health care is going to respond in the next 5 years? And this is kind of a two-part question. Where would you like to see us in 5 years? And in reality, where are we going to be in 5 years?
Told you it was going to be easy.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. Fundamentally, I agree with you, right? That we are at a place where healthcare and decisions and innovation tend to move slow, and product development life cycles are quite long, to be honest, and for good reason, right? We're building things that are fundamentally impacting people's lives. Where would we like to be? Listen, we would like product development life cycles to be shorter, right? We would like to deliver things faster to patients. And where will we actually be? I think we're on a path to get there, right? But it requires a lot more partnership. It's not just technology. It's not just innovation at companies. It's partnerships, right? With companies, with government agencies, with other forums, to really understand the impacts and guardrails of technology so that we can speed up in a way that is safe and meaningful to people.
I'd say that there's a disconnect between the realities of what clinicians are willing to do in their day-to-day practice, and for good reason. It's like they're just trying to practice good medicine, right? Versus all the things that we're throwing at them from a technology standpoint. Like, here's another thing that's going to make your life easier, so we think, right? And the reality is, no, that's just more stuff for me to do, more data for me to process. And by the way, I'm going to now have to hire more people to analyze and kind of process and relay that information back. So I think a huge opportunity is going to be addressing that gap and not demoralizing physicians, because that would be a big nightmare if we have people don't going into the practice of medicine because they fear this data overload, right? Like, protect them, let them do what they're good at, and hopefully create a world that can handle that communication of data to meaningful actions.
If you look out 5 years, there are certain demographic and other trends that are really hard to ignore. There's an acute shortage of nurses. There's an acute shortage of health practitioners across the board, perhaps. So healthcare delivery 5 years from now, 10 years from now is going to be different. So there will be opportunities to build on technologies, devices, solutions that can address these problems uniquely and be seen by healthcare practitioners as welcome. So I think we need to look for those niches where the opportunity and the technology can meet and make a meaningful difference to solve the problems of the day. Because ultimately, if it's just gathering more information and throwing it out there, that's useful to no one. It has to be practical, it has to make a difference either to the care delivery platform or to the diagnosis or management of the patients themselves.
Great, thank you, Anand. Let's maybe do two more. We're hit 3 o'clock here. I thought I saw Sean. Was someone, yeah, in the back? Go ahead.
Hi, Sean. I'm working at an organization called Gabo that we use an ultrasound to cure tumors. We just landed our blueprint that in the US that we learned there is 300,000 uterus being removed annually in the US from the woman's body. That's a huge number to us, and we come here, we learn a lot of advanced technology, AI, everything that we thought US will do better compared to other countries. And you guys are talking about the fluence of the information, how you use advanced technology to get more compliance, more disease. And now I found out probably there is another thing that we should
Is there, what's your question, Sean? Is there a question?
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, sorry.
How the AI can help, how those data events help for the people in the US getting accessible medical treatment, getting informed, instead of having 300,000 only, I think the only term personal clinical problem every year.
So how can AI help improve access to women's healthcare? Would that be a, okay, okay, okay. No, it's a great question. I'd probably have to write a book, but who's got a responses on, yeah, we'd love to see AI or anything improve access to healthcare. What do you think?
One way to interpret that question may be to look at access, healthcare access in general. And if you look at healthcare access in general, we are very fortunate in the US to have access to a variety of devices. And for that matter, if you look at the developed world, the 1.2 billion of the 8 or 9 billion, they have greater equity in terms of access. The remaining population still has challenges to access this degree of healthcare. And as the gentleman pointed out, even within the US, you have disparate levels of equity. So I think this is a significant problem. I don't think there's any one solution, but clearly we'll have to have technologies and others that can work together. And I mentioned this notion of data fluidity, islands of automation. We've got to kind of break those things down to make access more easily available to help to some extent.
I was involved in a work group at Stanford Biodesign related to access and equity. And one of the quick just takeaways from that is that we have to have people from these populations who we're trying to develop access for within these design teams. Because
It's back to the
us
diversity.
standing here and like trying to design for those people doesn't work. And so bring them on board and have them be a part of it.
So that means that the data that the AI learning models are absorbing has to be representative as well, right? Not just the humans, but the data
Yeah,
has
we
to be sourced.
make a lot of assumptions about like, oh, those people don't have cell phones, or those people don't have access to this. And the reality may be otherwise.
Right, right.
I guess the thing I'll add from our perspective is, I talked about partnerships earlier, also partnerships with insurers, right? So that we can actually value and invest in preventative care and diagnosis. It's a big challenge because a lot of these things are meant to be used and caught very early on. And so we have to incentivize that, right? And show the value that catching things early on has.
Right, marketing at some level, yeah, good point. Okay, one more, I think there was one, I'll go back. Philip, you got something to say?
Sure, I'll use my inside voice, so I don't need a microphone. For everybody that's an entrepreneur here, can you just help them understand when should they engage your companies? At what stage of their life science, biotech, whatever they're doing, when is a good time for them to get connected with you and approach you?
Thank you, that's a great practical question. What do you think? I've got a great idea, what do I do?
First, please make sure that whatever the idea is documented and disclosed, and you have your disclosure, patent disclosure, because it's really going to be hard for companies like us. We might be working on similar stuff ourselves, so we want to make sure that your idea is protected and ours is also retained appropriately.
There's an assumption there, you're assuming they don't approach you until they have a patent. Is that kind of what you're saying?
It will be really helpful if they take it to at least that stage. Because if it's an idea even before that stage, still in the mind, it's going to be hard to kind of articulate where it begins and ends.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Thank you.
So I think that would be a baby step, but also if you've developed a product, having some studies and efficacy data will also be very helpful. I think those would be the two critical elements we would be looking for.
That's a great start. First, huh?
You
run the innovation practice at Edwards. Or,
yeah, but you don't want to tell me any secrets. So we have teams who are specialized in taking in this type of information and interacting with the outside world. Some business units call them the exploration team, others are called discovery, but there's a mechanism through which you have that communication. And they will guide you through that too. If you don't happen to have your intellectual property filed, they will guide you through that to make sure that you're having a protected conversation. Before you mess it up though, don't divulge your secret in your email, in your first email to that person. Just reach out, open up the conversation, introduce yourself, and then they'll help you take it from there.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right in line with Farzad, actually. We have a group that does that. So yeah, build your networks, right? And so I think what you can find is that's a common pattern, right? So also remember in your networks, that's the person you're looking for, right? Who is the one who works with entrepreneurs, right? Can you give me that name? And then build your network that way.
So follow up, are those names listed on the OC startup directory?
good idea. Thanks, Philip. Yeah.
I'm just trying to help the community.
Yeah, that's right.
More conversations.
Well done. Well done. Yes. Well, this is our first collaboration, so we'll see. It's a great beta test. Okay. So I think that's probably enough time. So I'd like to offer some applause. I have 5 levels of applause. Okay. So can you give me a small clap here, like a golf clap? That's very good. So thank you to Irvine Tech Week for, keep going. Thank you for Irvine Tech Week for organizing, right? This is a lot of work. Okay, next level, take it up a little bit. Thanks to our panelists. Really good job, right? Okay, and then we're gonna keep going to the Beckman Foundation for hosting us. Yeah, very nice. Oh, and I forgot our sponsors, Beckhoff, they're here. Give them a big hand. Okay, there we go, Beckhoff, okay. Okay, and here's the big one. Ready? Let's hear it. Ready? All the way up. All right. Good, very good. That's for you. For showing up. Good job. You can't grow until you go. So you guys showed up. Thank you. That's why we came. See you next time. We have, sorry, one more, sorry. There's a bunch more events, right? So there are some placards like this out in the hallway if you don't have the app already, but there are more events. I'm going to 2 more right after this. There's more tomorrow. I'm hosting a big happy hour at Hangar 24. Tomorrow evening, there's another pitch competition. There's a hackathon this weekend. There's a 5K run. It's nonstop. So if you enjoyed this, there's plenty more, and we look forward to seeing you again next year, if not sooner. Thank you.